Awaken your spirit chosen ones. Some people don't realize how untouchable you are until they pay someone to test it, and the test backfires on sight. There's a strange truth people rarely talk about. Over 64% of spiritual practitioners admit they can sense when a target is energetically off-limits. They don't argue with it, they don't negotiate with it, because the moment they tap into the wrong aura, the wrong lineage, or the wrong destiny path, things start happening they themselves can't explain. And this is exactly where your story comes in. Someone was so obsessed, so pressed, so emotionally dehydrated over your existence that they actually dropped 10 full bands to try and mess with your energy field. 10,000. On bad vibes, on spiritual foolishness, on a mission fueled by jealousy, insecurity, and ego. They thought money could buy sabotage. They thought paying someone would automatically shift your life sideways. But what they didn't expect was the practitioner taking one look at your aura, one single energetic scan, and immediately opting out like, absolutely not, refund issued, I'm not touching that one. They didn't even bother pretending to try. They bailed instantly, like a delivery driver who sees a wild dog in front of the house and just drives off. This wasn't because you're perfect, or because you float around glowing like a saint. It's because your spirit carries a structure, a history, a resistance pattern they couldn't penetrate. You're not spiritually exposed. You're not energetically cheap. Some people have open doors in their aura. Yours has a full security system, motion sensors, steel gates, and ancestors checking ID at the entrance. And here's where it gets interesting. People expect spiritual attacks to fail because the attacker is weak. But in your case, it failed because you simply weren't an available target. Your energy wasn't open enough, fragile enough, or low enough to accept anything they were trying to send. So now the attacker is confused, the practitioner is scared, and you're out here drinking water, minding your business, completely unaware that someone tried to throw spiritual hands and missed the entire universe. That's where this story begins. Let's talk about what they saw when they looked at you, and why they ran. Number 1, their practitioner realized your energy wasn't attackable. What people never admit out loud is that some individuals simply can't be touched spiritually, no matter how much money is thrown at the attack. The practitioner didn't walk away because they were unskilled. They walked away because your energy didn't behave like a normal target's. Most people carry open spaces in their aura, little cracks from fear, insecurity, jealousy, or confusion. These openings make them easy to reach, easy to influence, and easy to destabilize. But when they scanned you, they didn't find openings. They found structure. They found alignment. They found layers that had been built through the kind of life experience that doesn't just break a person, it shapes them into something solid. Your aura didn't read soft or scattered. It read fortified. Life had already put you through enough storms that your energy learned how to close itself properly. You didn't even need rituals or defenses. Your spirit had become its own shield through endurance alone. Practitioners know when they're dealing with someone who's already fought bigger battles. And the truth is, your energy doesn't sit quietly. It carries memory, resistance, and a sharpness that makes anyone trying to attack you feel like they're stepping into a fight they were never trained for. When they checked your energy, what they felt wasn't vulnerability, it was pushback, not aggressive, not hostile, just a natural recoil from someone who has mastered survival. Your aura didn't invite entry, it rejected it. It didn't weaken at the idea of an attack, it held its ground. And when an experienced practitioner senses that kind of resilience, they understand immediately that the job is a loss before it even starts. They know that the attack won't land, the intention won't stick, and the only thing they'll accomplish is exhausting themselves or risking backlash. So they backed out. Not because the client didn't pay enough, not because the assignment was too complicated. but because they recognized that your energy isn't built for interference. It's built for longevity. It's built for protection. And most importantly, it's built in a way that anyone who tries to break it ends up breaking themselves instead. Number 2, your aura had reversal coding. They didn't want to trigger. The truth about spiritual energy is that not everyone absorbs what's sent toward them. Some people unintentionally reflect it. Your aura has a natural reversal effect, something you didn't ask for, didn't train for, and maybe aren't even fully aware of. But it exists, and anyone with real spiritual sensitivity can recognize it immediately. It's like your energy carries an automatic consequence system. Whatever someone sends your way circles back to where it came from, sometimes stronger, sometimes faster, but always returned. When the practitioner attempted to read your field, they didn't just see protection. They saw something more complicated, a pattern that absorbs intentions, filters them, then sends them back like a warning shot. They knew that if they went ahead with the job, the attack wouldn't drop into your life the way the client hoped. It would look for the nearest energetic match, and that match would be the sender or the practitioner themselves. No amount of money is worth dealing with an unexpected spiritual boomerang. This kind of aura comes from experience, not rituals. Life teaches certain people how to survive by silently training their spirit to shield and respond. You've gone through enough emotional, mental, and spiritual pressure that your energy learned to defend itself without you asking. And the defense mechanism isn't passive, it's reactive. Harm directed at you doesn't disappear, it just finds another route. Practitioners can feel that. They know when they're poking something that pokes back. What scared them wasn't the idea of the attack failing. It was the awareness that launching it might activate a chain reaction they couldn't control. It's one thing to take money to do a job. It's another to risk becoming the unintended target of whatever you naturally return. They saw the way your aura responds like an elastic band. Stretch it too far in your direction and it snaps back. So they stepped away. Not out of mercy for you, but out of self-preservation. In their world, the smart ones don't fight energy that reflects harm. They know better than to challenge a spirit structured to send everything back where it came from. Your aura wasn't just unattackable. It was a trap waiting to be triggered. Number 3. You're surrounded by ancestral interference they can't negotiate with. The moment the practitioner tried to tap into your energy, they came across something they couldn't bypass. Ancestral interference. Not the soft, comforting kind people talk about casually, but the firm, protective kind that stands between you and anything meant to harm you. These aren't spirits that respond to requests or compromise with strangers. They don't care who paid what or what the intention behind the job was. They operate with their own rules, their own authority, and a level of loyalty that outsiders can't influence. Your ancestors don't hover around because you're fragile. They're present because your lineage carries responsibilities, unfinished work, or spiritual contracts that are not meant to be disrupted by someone acting out of jealousy or obsession. Some people are backed by ancestors who watch passively. Yours intervene. They interfere. They step in without waiting for permission. And to a practitioner, that's one of the clearest warnings to back off. When the practitioner reached out to read you, they didn't sense an unguarded soul. They sensed watchers. They sensed protectors who don't introduce themselves or explain their purpose. They sensed boundaries. A seasoned practitioner knows the difference between someone who is just energetically strong and someone who is spiritually escorted. Your energy wasn't alone, and that changes everything. There's a hierarchy in the spiritual world, and your protectors outranked anything the practitioner was trying to use. What made them walk away wasn't fear of you. It was fear of your backing. They knew whatever they attempted wouldn't land on you. It would trigger a response from forces they couldn't reason with. Ancestral protectors don't care about intentions or excuses. They defend, they block, and sometimes they strike. A practitioner who values their own safety won't risk crossing that line. Your attacker thought money would guarantee results, but the practitioner saw immediately that you're not spiritually accessible. You're not standing alone in your energy field, and anyone who tries to enter it without permission finds themselves standing in front of a force that doesn't entertain nonsense. That's why the practitioner bailed. They weren't just backing out of a job, they were avoiding a confrontation with your lineage, a confrontation they knew they couldn't win. Number 4, your energy reads like someone who's already survived worse. When the practitioner tried to tune into your energy, what they felt wasn't softness, uncertainty, or spiritual openness. They felt weight, real, lived experience. Not the kind that drags you down, but the kind that builds a strong internal structure. Your energy didn't present as someone who could be tipped over easily. It carried the imprint of someone who has already faced storms far bigger than anything they could send for 10 bands, and that alone was enough to make them step back. People who haven't been through real hardship often have a fragile energy field. They're easier to influence because their spirit hasn't learned how to defend itself. But when someone has survived betrayal, emotional battles, spiritual pressure, and personal upheavals, something changes in the way their aura settles. It becomes dense, grounded, and steady. You're not floating through life, you're anchored. Your energy isn't naive, it's informed. It remembers everything you've been forced to overcome, and that memory shows. A practitioner can sense when someone is spiritually inexperienced versus spiritually conditioned. And your energy didn't feel like it belonged to someone who could be shaken by outside interference. It felt like it belonged to someone who has already stood in the middle of chaos and still managed to pull themselves back into alignment. That kind of energy is difficult to attack because it doesn't react the way typical targets do. It doesn't spiral. It doesn't crack. It doesn't absorb negativity. It processes it. To the practitioner, this signaled a major issue. Even if the attack somehow landed, the impact wouldn't be worth the effort. It would dissolve in your system, get recycled, or even make you stronger. You're not someone who collapses under pressure. You're someone who adapts. And that makes you an unprofitable target. No spiritual worker wants to waste time or risk backlash on someone who has already proved they can handle more than what's being sent. So they walked away. Not because the job was too hard, but because your spirit told them a simple truth. You've already survived worse than anything they could throw at you. They knew immediately that whatever attack they attempted would fail, not because of protection from the outside, but because of the strength you built on the inside. Number 5. Your frequency was too high to anchor. A negative intention. 2. The reason the practitioner backed out wasn't just because you're strong or protected. Your energy was vibrating at a level that simply didn't give their intention anything to hold on to. Spiritual attacks only work when there's something in the target that matches the frequency of the attack. Fear, insecurity, bitterness, self-doubt, emotional chaos. These are the hooks that negative energy latches onto. But when they scanned your field, they didn't find those hooks in the way they expected. Your frequency wasn't scattered or unstable. It was elevated, steady, and difficult to penetrate. This doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you've done enough inner work, consciously or not, that your emotional and spiritual baseline is higher than what the practitioner was trying to send. Energy cannot attach where it does not resonate, and your frequency was too far above the vibration of whatever they were paid to deliver. You weren't vibrating in anger. You weren't vibrating in desperation. You weren't vibrating in confusion. Your inner world had already been through enough cycles of healing, growth, and self-checking that you moved differently. You weren't sitting in the emotional mud they were hoping to anchor into. You were operating from clarity, awareness, and a level of self-respect that acted like a natural shield. Practitioners can feel when negative work won't stick. It's like trying to plant seeds in concrete. They saw immediately that their efforts would bounce off you, dissolve, or get rejected before it even reached your space. And there's something else they noticed. Your energy doesn't hold on to negativity for long. Even when you go through stress or frustration, you process it. You don't store it. That alone makes spiritual interference nearly impossible. They also knew that if they tried to force the attack, they'd be wasting energy and risking backlash. Negative intentions need a matching environment. Your inner environment didn't match. There was no emotional doorway open, no spiritual leak, no internal weakness they could manipulate. So they withdrew. Not because they lacked ability, but because they realized your frequency was simply out of reach. They couldn't lower you, and they couldn't reach you. You were vibrating too high for anything they sent to anchor itself into your life. Number 6. You carry a hidden gift. They were smart enough not to provoke. When the practitioner tried to read your energy, they noticed something that made them pause instantly. You have a gift you don't fully use or even talk about, but it's active enough to make anyone on the spiritual side think twice. Not every gift shows itself in dramatic ways. Some show in subtle but powerful patterns. Your intuition hitting too accurately, your dreams revealing things you shouldn't logically know, your ability to sense shifts in people's intentions, or your natural way of mirroring energy back at others without even trying. These abilities usually stay quiet, almost unnoticeable in everyday life, but to a spiritual worker, they stand out like a warning sign. Your gift isn't loud, it's reactive. It responds to interference. It responds to intentions. It responds to energy. And the practitioner knew that if they attempted to send anything your way, your gift would activate without you having to lift a finger. What scared them wasn't the possibility of the attack failing, it was the possibility of waking up a deeper side of you they weren't equipped to deal with. Gifts that awaken through confrontation are unpredictable, and they knew that once triggered, yours would track the source or disrupt the attempt completely. They sensed sensitivity in your field, the kind that pays attention even when you're not consciously trying. You may have had moments where you felt something was off before it happened, or you picked up on people's motives without evidence. That's part of your gift. And a practitioner knows better than to mess with someone whose spirit is wired to detect shifts quickly. Your gift also carries a protective layer around it. Even though you don't actively use it, it shields you in ways you probably don't realize. It blocks what isn't meant for you. It exposes what's hidden. It repels what feels fake. Attacking someone with that kind of natural spiritual intelligence isn't just reckless, it's pointless. The practitioner backed out because they recognized that tampering with you meant tampering with something beyond you. They didn't want to poke a gift they didn't understand, especially one that might activate and reverse the energy back in a way they couldn't control. Your gift wasn't the problem, it was the risk, and they weren't willing to take it. Number 7, your spirit operates under a contract. They couldn't override. When the practitioner tried to access your energy, they realized there was something deeper at play. Your life isn't moving randomly. Your spirit operates under a contract, a kind of spiritual agreement that shapes your path, your timing, your protection, and even the challenges you're allowed to face. This isn't something you consciously signed. It's something tied to your purpose, your lineage, or your soul's journey. And to any experienced spiritual worker, that kind of contract is a hard stop. It means your life is not open territory. A contract like this creates invisible boundaries. It decides who can reach you, who can influence you, and what types of negative energy you're even allowed to encounter. The practitioner noticed immediately that your path has checkpoints, certain things simply cannot touch you because they would interfere with what you're meant to become or what you're meant to do. They saw restrictions in your energy field, the kind that say, interference denied. No matter how much money someone paid, that contract wasn't up for negotiation. Practitioners know when a target is spiritually off limits. They feel resistance. They feel redirection. They feel energy pushing them out before they even get close. And with you, they felt all of that at once. Nothing in your field responded to their intention. There was no entry point, no weakness, no energetic permission. It was like trying to access a locked system without the right key. And in the spiritual world, forcing access is not just difficult, it's dangerous. Your contract doesn't mean your life is perfect or free from challenges. It means that the challenges you face are part of your growth, not someone else's manipulation. You're allowed to go through what builds you, not what destroys you prematurely. That distinction alone makes outside attacks almost impossible to land. The practitioner sensed immediately that any attempt to interfere with your path would backfire, not because you're overly protected, but because your spirit isn't theirs to tamper with. They would be stepping into a role they weren't authorized to play. And in their world, crossing a spiritual contract is one of the fastest ways to invite chaos into their own life. So they backed out. Not out of fear of you, but out of respect for the agreement surrounding you. They knew they were dealing with a destiny that comes with conditions, and those conditions made you completely untouchable. Number 8. Your aura carried a warning signal, not a vulnerability. When the practitioner scanned your energy, what they noticed wasn't fragility or openness. It was a signal, a warning baked into the fabric of your aura that clearly said, "Do not touch." This wasn't aggression, it wasn't fear, it wasn't chaos. It was a calm, grounded, authoritative kind of warning that only shows up in people who have developed strong spiritual boundaries without even trying. There was something about your energy that told them interference wouldn't be a simple job. It would come with consequences. Your aura didn't read messy or scattered. It read collected, firm, and aware. Practitioners know when an aura is leaking. They know when someone is dealing with emotional instability, insecurity, or spiritual confusion. Those are the people who make easy targets because their energy is more open to outside influence. But your aura didn't have the typical signs of vulnerability. It didn't show weakness. It didn't show confusion. It didn't show an invitation. Instead, it had a tone to it, a quiet strength that made them hesitate. Some people carry energy that pushes others away without them having to say a word. Your aura does that naturally. It sets boundaries spiritually before you ever set them verbally. That's why people with hidden motives often feel uncomfortable around you. That warning signal is always present, even when you don't know it's there. What unsettled the practitioner was how direct the energy felt. Not loud, not dramatic, just clear. Auras like yours don't allow certain types of energy to approach, and practitioners respect that. They know the difference between a shield and a threat. Your aura was a shield with a built-in alarm system. Anything that tried to enter without permission would get pushed out, reversed, or blocked before it reached you. The warning wasn't only about protection, it was about the fact that your energy doesn't tolerate nonsense. It doesn't entertain manipulation. It doesn't welcome hidden intentions. That makes you a high-risk target in the spiritual world. No one wants to deal with backlash from an aura that knows how to defend itself instantly. So the practitioner didn't hesitate. They backed out because your energy didn't look like something they could handle or override. It looked like something that would handle them instead. Number 9, you're not spiritually open enough to be used as a gateway. When the practitioner tried to reach into your energy, they hit a problem that had nothing to do with strength or aggression. Your spirit simply wasn't open. Spiritual interference needs access, an emotional crack, a mental confusion, a spiritual leak. something that allows an outside energy to slip in and anchor itself. But your inner world wasn't offering any of those entry points. You weren't broadcasting insecurity. You weren't drowning in unprocessed emotions. You weren't carrying chaotic energy that made you easy to manipulate. Your field was closed in the way only someone who has learned self-control and emotional discipline can maintain. People often don't realize how much their inner state creates spiritual doorways. A person who's constantly overwhelmed, resentful, guilty, or lost becomes an easy gateway for external intentions. Energy can slip in because there's somewhere for it to sit. But with you, the practitioner found nothing to sit in. Your emotional landscape wasn't wide open. It wasn't leaking. It wasn't welcoming visitors. It was contained, stable, and internally aligned. You've gone through enough life experiences that taught you how to hold yourself together, even when things go wrong. That inner stability becomes spiritual stability. It closes doors automatically. It shuts down access before anything even tries. This isn't something you consciously do. It's something your spirit learned as a survival mechanism. And that's what the practitioner sensed. A closed system, a spirit that wasn't accepting input from the outside, a gateway that refused to open. This is why certain people feel drained around you, while others feel exposed. Your energy doesn't merge with just anyone's. You don't absorb their emotions. You don't pick up their negativity. And you don't exchange easily. That makes you hard to influence because your field isn't designed to blend with random energy. The practitioner recognized that forcing an opening would backfire. That kind of spiritual push only works on people who are mentally scattered or emotionally overwhelmed. You weren't either. You were centered enough that your spirit didn't need outside validation, connection, or guidance in that moment. It was self-contained. They backed out because they realized something simple. An attack needs a doorway, and you weren't offering one. Your spirit wasn't available as an access point, and without access, nothing they attempted would land. Number 10. Your intuition was already tracking the attack before it started. The practitioner walked away because the moment they tried to scan your field, they felt something unusual. You were already aware on an intuitive level. Not consciously, not in a paranoid way, but your inner senses had already picked up the shift before anything was formally cast. Some people move through life blindly, disconnected from their inner signals. But your intuition works like an internal alert system. It notices when energy changes. It notices when someone has you on their mind with the wrong intention. It notices when your atmosphere feels off, even if you don't fully understand why. Practitioners know when someone's intuition is active because intuitive people don't receive energy passively. They react. They adjust. Their spirit tightens. Their mind becomes sharper. Their awareness rises. That shift creates resistance. It's like your spirit subtly leaned back, took a defensive stance, and looked around, even though your physical body kept moving normally. And because your intuition had already picked up the disturbance, the practitioner couldn't get a clear, open read on you. Your field was alert, not relaxed. That alone makes their work nearly impossible. Intuition isn't just about sensing danger. It's about sensing intention. And you have a natural sensitivity to people's motives, even when they're hidden. You don't need evidence, you just feel things. You've probably noticed how you suddenly become distant from people right before they reveal their true colors, or how you get a strange shift in your mind when someone is plotting behind the scenes. Those patterns aren't random. They're signs of an intuitive radar that works without your permission. This is exactly what scared the practitioner. They knew that if they continued, your intuition would trace the source. Intuitive people don't just sense the attack, they sense who's connected to it. They sense the direction it came from. They sense the disruption in their space. And people with intuition like yours unconsciously block energy long before it lands. Your awareness isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, but powerful. Your inner senses activate automatically when something is wrong. And to a practitioner, that means one thing. The target is already awake. Awake targets are unpredictable. Awake targets are harder to touch. Awake targets push back without even trying. So they backed out because they knew your intuition had already seen them coming. And anyone who knows spiritual work understands that's a losing situation before it begins. Number 11. Your presence felt too expensive to tamper with. When the practitioner tapped into your energy, the first thing they noticed wasn't fear, weakness, or instability. They noticed value, real value. A presence that didn't match the kind of person people casually attack or manipulate. Your energy carried the feeling of someone who has gone through real upgrades. Painful ones, costly ones, the kind that transform a person from the inside out. Those upgrades aren't just emotional or spiritual. They change the quality of your aura. They make you feel expensive, not in a material sense, but in an energetic one. You're not someone whose spirit can be handled recklessly. Practitioners understand energetic cost better than anyone. When they try to interfere with someone who has a high-value presence, the work becomes heavy, draining, and unpredictable. It requires more power, more risk, and more spiritual currency than they're willing to spend. They could feel immediately that interacting with your field would cost them more than the money they'd be paid. You weren't worth 10 bands. You were worth more, and not in the way your attacker intended. It meant that attacking you could create imbalance for them. It could drain them, rebound, or attach to their own life in ways they couldn't control. Your presence didn't feel like someone who folds under pressure. It felt like someone whose energy reinforces itself. You've been through things that forced you to develop inner strength, resilience, and self-respect. That changes the way your energy sits. It becomes dense, grounded, and expensive to touch. When the practitioner scanned you, they didn't see an easy target. They saw someone whose energy demanded spiritual payment they couldn't afford. And there's another layer to this. High-value energy often comes with high-level protection, not because you asked for it, but because your life is aligned with something that requires you to stay intact. You're not cheaply built. You're not spiritually disposable. Your presence has weight, purpose, and influence, even if you don't see it yourself. The practitioner picked up on that instantly. They knew that tampering with your energy meant inviting consequences that went beyond the job. It meant disrupting someone who carries too much spiritual equity to be touched carelessly. So they walked away. Not out of respect for the attacker, not out of fear of failure, but because your presence made one thing very clear. Interacting with you would cost far more than they were willing to pay. Number 12. Your soul has a reputation. In realms they never expected. The moment the practitioner tried to probe your energy, they felt something unusual. Your soul carries a reputation that stretches beyond what anyone could see in the physical world. People often assume that just because someone moves quietly in life, their spirit is equally unremarkable. But your presence in the unseen realms tells a different story. There's recognition in your energy, a kind of quiet acknowledgement that you exist and have influence. You might not consciously broadcast it, but your aura carries whispers of past resilience, strength, and encounters that ripple through planes the average person, and even many spiritual workers, cannot touch. Practitioners immediately sense when they are dealing with someone whose spirit is known in these hidden layers. It's not about fame or power in the human sense. It's about spiritual currency. Your life, your energy, your endurance, they leave marks. Those marks attract recognition, and recognition creates consequences. Anyone attempting interference can feel it instantly. This is not someone ordinary, not someone whose life or energy can be casually manipulated. The reputational weight of your soul acts like a barrier. It warns intruders that tampering could create ripple effects that they can't control. Your reputation isn't loud or flashy. It's structural. It's embedded in the way your energy interacts with others, the way your presence shifts the atmosphere, and the subtle authority it carries. Some practitioners sense it as resistance, some as a reflective aura that mirrors intentions back, and some as a warning that the target has allies you'll never see. Spirits who recognize your value and intervene silently. This is why your attacker's investment failed. It wasn't simply about your energy being strong or your defenses being high. It was about the fact that your soul is already known, acknowledged, and respected in places where many practitioners wouldn't dare to tread. That recognition alone made the attack not just useless, but potentially dangerous to the one trying to carry it out. They bailed because they understood one fundamental truth. Your energy isn't private or easy to manipulate. Your soul's reputation precedes you, and in the spiritual realm, reputation carries power that money cannot buy. Number 13, they saw your future trajectory and knew interfering would backfire. When the practitioner scanned your energy, they weren't just reading your present. They were sensing your trajectory, the path your spirit is moving along. Energy carries momentum, and some people have a flow that's so precise, so aligned with their purpose, that any interference becomes not only difficult but dangerous. Your aura didn't just radiate strength, it radiated direction. It told the practitioner, without words, that whatever they tried to do would be wasted, or worse, boomerang back. Practitioners can often sense when someone's path is protected by alignment with destiny or purpose. It's not mystical guesswork, it's energy dynamics. Your intentions, your growth, and the choices embedded in your spirit created a current that external interference cannot simply push against. You're moving along a course that's reinforced by experience, insight, and inner guidance. Any attempt to divert it is like trying to push a river upstream. It's futile, and it can rebound violently. That was exactly what the practitioner picked up on. Your energy carried the story of where you're heading, and that story was too clear, too structured, too resistant to manipulation. Attacking you would have been like interfering with the blueprint of a building mid-construction. It doesn't bend, it doesn't crumble, it just causes more problems for the person meddling. They felt the potential consequences of forcing interference and realized it wasn't worth the risk. It wasn't about weakness or fear. It was about timing and trajectory. You're on a path that's beyond ordinary influence, and your energy reflects that. The practitioner recognized that no matter how skilled they were, the outcome wouldn't favor the attack. In fact, it could turn against them. Your alignment, your trajectory, and the way your energy is designed make you untouchable in ways most people don't understand. So, they walked away. Not because they couldn't try, but because they knew any effort to interfere with your journey would fail spectacularly. Your future, your path, and your energy are all operating on a level that makes outside manipulation not just ineffective, but dangerous to those attempting it. Number 14. Your spirit didn't fear them, and that was the ultimate red flag. When the practitioner scanned your energy, the most striking thing wasn't your strength, your protection, or even your aura's structure. It was your lack of fear. Fear is what makes spiritual attacks effective. Fear creates openings, hesitation, and cracks in the energy field that can be exploited. But with you, there was none of that. Your spirit didn't flinch. It didn't tense. It didn't shrink. There was awareness, calmness, and an unshakable neutrality that made it immediately clear. You are not easily intimidated. That absence of fear was the ultimate red flag to anyone attempting interference. Fear isn't just a feeling, it's energy. It lowers your vibration, opens pathways, and signals vulnerability. When someone's aura shows fear, a practitioner knows they can anchor negative intentions, manipulate outcomes, or disrupt the person's energy. But when fear is absent, when neutrality and confidence dominate the field, the energy becomes difficult to touch. The practitioner can feel it immediately. It's like running into an invisible wall made of awareness and calm that cannot be bypassed. You weren't reacting to their scan, their attempt, or the energy being sent. You simply were, and that was more threatening to them than aggression could ever be. Your spirit's lack of fear also signals another thing. You understand boundaries, consciously or unconsciously. You know where you begin and where others end. You don't absorb nonsense. You don't allow manipulation to dictate your energy. That awareness alone makes you untouchable because the practitioner can sense that any negative energy directed at you will fail or rebound. This is why they left. Not out of cowardice, but out of calculation. They knew that trying to interfere with a spirit that doesn't fear them is a risk they cannot afford. Your calm, fearless presence alone communicates that you are untouchable on a level most people don't recognize until it's too late. The truth is simple. Fearlessness in your energy doesn't just protect you. It broadcasts a warning louder than any shield or spell. It tells everyone watching that you are not a target, and the practitioner wisely chose to respect that. When you look at the full picture, it becomes clear that none of this was luck, coincidence, or mystery. Every layer of your energy, your clarity, your resilience, your alignment, your inner awareness, your lack of fear, worked together like a system that was already prepared long before the attack was even planned. The moment the practitioner scanned you, they weren't just reading an aura. They were witnessing a dynamic force shaped by growth, experience, purpose, and spiritual maturity. They saw protection that wasn't borrowed, strength that wasn't superficial, and a trajectory that couldn't be touched without consequences. People often assume spiritual attacks succeed because somebody is more skilled, more connected, or more dangerous. But in your case, the truth was the complete opposite. They failed before they even started. Your aura exposed the reality. You're operating at a level where interference becomes self-sabotage for anyone who attempts it. Everything about your energy communicated a silent truth they couldn't ignore. Your path is fortified, your spirit is seasoned, and your presence itself is a warning label they'd be foolish to test. This entire story isn't about what they tried to do. It's about why it didn't work. It's about the strength you've built without even trying to prove anything. It's about the fact that your growth has turned into an invisible armor that protects you even when you're unaware of the attacks happening behind the scenes. And ultimately, it's about how your authenticity is more powerful than someone else's intention. If this resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps the message travel. And trust me, we're just getting started. Stay awakened, chosen ones.